Well, it looks like we're going to be doing something a little bit different today on the Mastering Midlife podcast. So thanks for being here. Um, we are recording the audiobook for Only Tens 2.0 Confront Your To Do List, Transform Your Life. And both my book coach and the producers for the podcast thought it would be a good idea for me to do some sound check and work on my reading out loud, since I don't know how many of you've done reading out loud since elementary school, but I haven't. So since then, we're gonna see how I do with my reading. This is actually probably my fourth time giving this a shot. So if it works, that's awesome. So what we're going to be doing is reading the first chapter in Only Tens 2.0, kind of what the evolution of why I wrote another book, why we updated it, some insights that I have, and then some insights that I hopefully you can take away just from this first chapter into your own life. So we're going to give it a shot. We're going to start now with what's known as the preference, walking the walk. It isn't always easy to admit, but back in 2015, I couldn't see what a revelation Only Tens was. I can see now that I've spent too much time downplaying its impact, clarity, and transformative power. I wrote Only Tens for an audience of one, me. Truth be told, I didn't think anybody would read it. Yet I published Only Tens, and 1,500 copies went the first day. The same sold, the same number sold the second day, a total of 10,000 copies in the first week. People posted positive reviews and sent messages about what a game changer it was for them. Some well known authors wrote testimonials. Other coaches gave it to their CEO clients to inspire them to focus. Even my mentor acknowledged the book was something special. Inside, though, I was asking myself why. The book was rushed, I thought. I hadn't understood the need for copy editing after all. It was written fire, ready, aim. I knew it went public with its weak grammar and misspellings, but still tens of thousands of copies of my personal PhD program made their way around the world. I wasn't in a place to allow myself to accept the praise. I only saw the typos and poor writing. It came from me, and I discounted the 10,000 hours of reading, learning, and workshops prior to it, and I knew that the concepts weren't new or all that unique. I diminished Only Tens, yet I taught the workshops and seen the light bulbs go on. I didn't know how to build a polished machine like David Allen and his overwhelming getting things done industry. So Only Tens got no respect from me. Then I reread it a few years later, and I was reminded that I never had a time management problem. I only had an honesty problem. Apparently, it wasn't just me that had an honesty problem. So many people sent me messages saying things like I had written the book for them. Once the rights to the book reverted to me, my assistant, Gail Boo, took it upon herself to re edit the book. She is incredibly competent and a perfectionist, so in her hands, the book up leveled beautifully. She corrected the grammar and the misspellings. As I reread it after Gail worked her magic, I found myself wondering who had written that insightful chapter on fear. I asked myself who came up with the great toolbox. It was like I was reading another person's book. It was that good. The book resonated with me just like it had been written for me. It was simple, direct, kind, and unflinching in its mission to get me, the reader, to take responsibility for everything in my life. If you believe in the muse, that mystical entity that creates music, paints paintings, and yes, writes books, then you will understand that I could not simply write Only Tens. I needed to bring it into the world for myself first. It was written through me and for me. The good news is that no matter what I believed, thousands have benefited. So from here on in, I take credit for the book with my name on it. We will know where it really came from, but with a wink. What I created as an exercise in time management and motivation for myself and to benefit my clients, workshop attendees, and those who came across the book organically turned into a multi year journey of self discovery. I didn't just write Only Tens, I practiced it too. And because I practiced it, I knew it worked. By analyzing my to do list and critically asking why things were on it, read as figuring out where I was lying to myself, I discovered my fears and distractions were hidden in the list itself. I improved relationships and moved so much off my plate that I felt free to create. For the first time in my life, I was getting things done. I was having tough conversations that were really honest. If it wasn't a 10 for me, well, then I'd let it go and then blame it on only tens. Then something happened. I'd seen a lot of personal success with my productivity. Professionally, the book and the Only Tens workshops were selling steadily. At some point, though, I stopped writing everything on my whiteboard. On occasion, when I did use the whiteboard, it was without the level of commitment I had done before. It was a 10 if I felt like it board. And I'll let it go to tomorrow board. Important things dropped out. The habit had only lasted while it was fun. It seemed that only tens, like anything else for someone with ADD, lasted only as long as it was stimulating. Even though the book kept selling and I continued to do the workshops and only tens was being quoted all over the place, once the newness and awesomeness of my newly birthed system wore off, I wasn't walking the walk as well as I'd like to be able to report. But there is something I only saw recently when I decided to publish Only Tens 2.0. Even when I wasn't practicing the Only 10 system, it was still benefiting me and it had taught me to be honest with myself. I got woke with Only Tens. When I got distracted, I saw it. When I said yes to a six, I saw it. Even if what I chose was less than a 10 or even just a distraction, I could see it as a choice. The unconscious victim could not come back. On one hand, I would let go of a 10 using the excuse that I'll take the consequences, but that's the beauty of it. I had chosen those consequences. Whatever my predicament, I was choosing to be there either through action or inaction. I saw only tens with a new appreciation when I repeatedly fell off the wagon of practicing it fully. Although it felt like 10 steps forward and 8 steps back, those 2 steps, honesty and responsibility, were the first building blocks to create a lifetime of practice and growth. And we want solid building blocks. We want our own experience. We want to be the captains of our own lives. Failing honestly at only tens is not failing, it is learning. Stop doing only tens, recognize it, start again, rinse, repeat. The 5 years since I published Only Tens have changed me. I've had the good fortune to talk to people about the Only Tens concepts daily, and while engaging with them, I've been reminded about my own need to have difficult conversations, be honest with myself, make sure everything on my to do list ought to be, eliminate expectations in favor of agreements, be clear in my communications, keep my word, and renegotiate when I am unable to. It's entirely true. We teach what we most need to learn. I wasn't going to learn all these skills or confront the fears and conditionings just because I had put the digit 10 next to an action item. I needed to wrestle with it, triumph and failure. And in doing so, grow, expand, find clarity, and learn to celebrate the process as I journeyed along. When I wrote Only Tens, I was recognizing the action of someone who was no longer a doormat or a martyr. I learned some skills to set boundaries, not immediately and not quickly, but gradually. It took a lot of practice, but over time I learned. I screwed up at first and then I got it right. I changed. I feel certain that every person in my life today would describe me as direct and honest, and that they would say I am always willing to ask for what I want and to set a boundary. I had occasion to be part of a leadership training, and the participants were separated into 2 groups. The first was made up of those judged to be shyer and more passive dudes, and the second group were judged to be arrogant, defiant alpha types. Guess which group I landed in? The feedback was that I was a badass. That had not been me before Only Tens. In the time after I wrote Only Tens and practiced, stopped, and started with its key principles, another thing happened. I became kinder and more loving. Resentments couldn't take hold. And if they did, I knew what to do to relieve them. I realized that if I had a resentment, it was on me. I had not set a boundary, or I had not asked for what I wanted, or I was just a little bit jealous. The program I created to get things done with instructions and practices became a way of being for me in the world. I was a strong no to the suggestion that I produce a second edition of Only Tens. I had my reasons. I get bored easily. Reading the same book twice is pushing it for me. Rewriting the same book felt beyond my tolerance. I don't even go over my answers once more on a test if I have extra time. When I'm done, I'm done. Moving forward is my modus operandi. Revisit the same content? No thanks. Not me. It's boring. I also live for the adrenaline rush of the creative process. Once the initial excitement is spent, so is my interest. One time I taught myself to play guitar so that I could give a talk and then actually sing on on a being willing to fail weekend. I faced my greatest fear, singing in public. I played and sang on stage and even got a standing ovation. And I never picked the guitar up again. No need, the process was complete. I was moving on. And I didn't understand the book's worth. People who read Only Tens told me it was good and that it had an impact on them. Other coaches I knew gave it to their CEO clients, and I witnessed some of the language of Only Tens find its way into the common speech around relationships with time. It kept selling tens of thousands per year. I heard all that, but I never really saw the value. My language is different now. I was a new writer when I penned Only Tens, learning the principles at the same time as I was crafting them to pass on to the readers. After 5 years, I worked the program and taught it to tens of thousands of folks. The way I address the more effective concepts is different now. I'm a better writer and coach. I felt pulled to create something new to reflect my evolution, mastering midlife, more than I wanted to consider what still worked and needed further explorations in Only Tens. Assuming there might be some strength in the idea of a second edition that I hadn't seen, I pulled out a copy of Only Tens from the shelf, daring to challenge my unfettered instinct to declare a hard no. I was dumbfounded by what I saw and read. Who wrote this? I saw the chapters on honesty, choice, and fear with fresh eyes. They blew my mind, even though I've been teaching the concepts in workshops for years. The lessons still held true. The qualifier places every item either on or off the to do list and is key to how we operate in many areas of our lives. Inquire about the qualifier, learn about you. I saw that getting honest about my to do list moved me from a victim of circumstance to the owner of my life, of my time and attention. We need to get honest about our choices. Whether setting a boundary, asking for what I want, saying no, or creating a clear agreement, being willing to have the sweaty palmed, risky, feeling difficult conversations makes the biggest impact. We need to have more of these. 10 minutes of honest planning changes the trajectory of the day, the week, and the rest of life. Everyone has 10 minutes. Everyone. 2 hours of deep work twice a week transforms creation. We simply need to find those hours. Those are the tangible operational lessons. To get to these, though, the path isn't always a straight line. In my client sessions and teaching work with Only Tens, I've heard every story that a person can tell themselves to not adopt the lessons of the qualifier, to choose the elements of the list, to plan, have the conversations, and so on. To get to the tools requires first getting past the stories we tell ourselves. Once reviewed, I was able to nail down the 10 truths that I coach people in order for them to see the full benefits of the Only Tens ways. And I've included them here as highlights of the Only Tens 2.0. That's the end of the preface. Thank you for listening. Hopefully, my reading was understandable. So, those 10 uncomfortable truths that keep us in overwhelm, if you go to my website, as you heard in the bumper, and you sign up, you can get 10 videos, 1 minute each, to find out those 10 truths. And then we'll send you the chapter on the 10 truths, 10 uncomfortable truths that keep you in overwhelm so that you can learn those. And if you liked what you heard, would love for you to read the book, leave me a review. Let me know what you think. Hopefully, this was helpful. I really appreciate you helping me with my public speaking, public reading since elementary school. I love you guys a ton. Have a great rest of the day.